Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Wealth Transfer TV. My name is Steve K, and I'm the president and founder of Kasyanenko Ministries. Today, we've got an amazing guest. They call him the Moses of Wall Street. His name is Ron Tank. He's an author of the book, Moses of Wall Street. He's also creator of Bulletproof Investor and Triple Tank System. And he is going to share with us investment secrets that he has found in the Bible that he has proven actually work. Welcome, Ron Tank.
Yeah, thanks. Well, thanks for having me, Steve. Pleasure to be here.
So this is interesting. I'm in Miami right now, and we're speaking to people who are supporting our next project. And one of the conversations, of course, led to trading. And I'm going to use Bitcoin. I know you're not into crypto. I know you're in traditional stocks, commodities, and equities, but we were talking about Bitcoin, and someone said to me, it's no different than betting on the track or gambling. And my response, which I think is your response, is it's not if you know what you're doing and you've mitigated your risk to the point where you're safe. So how would you have responded to, trading, up, down, it's all corrupt. It's all, kind of like gambling and you shouldn't do it. What do you say to that?
Well, what I think, Steve, on that is it can be gambling. So people can turn it into gambling by just kind of getting in and hoping everything works out. And I eliminate the gambling aspect by having a system. So if a guy's got a set of rules and guidelines that he operates by, and he's got a plan, he's willing to enact that plan, then you can take the gambling out. When it comes to gambling, Steve, I always think of a racetrack. You bet on, if somebody goes to the track, they can bet on a horse, but when they're halfway through the race, you can't go back to the guy at the window and say, hey, I'd like to have 3/4 of my money back. My horse isn't doing too good. You're in it to win it, as they say. And when I look at it as gambling, I think, well, yeah, but most gamblers end up with nothing. They really own nothing, and they don't end up with anything most of the time. But in the market, we can be stewards, which means, hey, we can manage our money. We can make decisions to put more money in, take money out. It doesn't have to be gambling. It shouldn't be gambling. That's the way I see it, Steve.
I see it the same way, and when you're talking about plan, as a trader, and I think you see it the same way, but I first of all, I'm not making trades because I have to make trades or I want to make trades. I take trades because I see a setup based on my technical analysis, based on the history that I know that I see repeating, based on really, if it hits a certain threshold, then I'm like, okay, this is a trade. There's a very high probability of going this way, and then I'll take it. But I have an in. I know how much money I'm putting in. I know at what price. I know at what price if I'm wrong, at how much I'm going to lose, which is typically no more than 1% of my entire trading portfolio. And I know where I'm taking profits. So it's not gambling in that we've mitigated as much risk as possible. And is that what you mean by creating a plan?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Steve. So system, same thing. So what you just said sound like ditto me, Steve. It's where do I get in? I've got a plan. I've got a safety net, so to speak, on if something doesn't work as it's intended, where I can get out. So I know what my loss is. I limit that loss. And then I have a plan to let my winners run, and it is based on technical. I use technical. I'll show it to you today. The pattern that is the secret. It's the stone that David threw kind of thing. And you can, if you use technical analysis along with a little fundamental analysis and then and get a plan together, now you're operating as an investor or a steward. You're not gambling. You're making good decisions based on facts that you know at the time. Just being a good steward.
Exactly. And a good steward, we know from the Bible, isn't someone who took his money and stuck it in a hole in the ground. That's called savings. That's called savings. A good steward multiplies. He multiplies.
Yeah, Steve. So the parable of the talents, you just brought that up, Matthew 25. So if you think of the three servants that were given money, the guy gave them the talents, and it tells us in there, Steve, I learned a lot from that parable, which is, it says that they were given to according to their abilities. So people need to realize, hey, if you want to have more, then you need to get to work increasing your abilities to handle more. That's in there. It also said they win at once. Means don't stand around 5 years in fear. Get busy. God expects you to be an investor. And you say, well, how do you know that, Tank? How do you know that God wants us to be an investor? Well, those two of those servants went out and doubled their money. You don't do that by accident. The one that didn't, he buried it in his backyard. Why did he do it? Out of fear. When the master came back, what did he call that servant? Wicked and lazy. And what did he tell him? He said, you should have at least put my money on deposit with a banker so I could have at least collected interest when I came back. You didn't even do that. The other two guys got it right, Steve, and they were commended as being what? The good and faithful servant.
Yeah, and the one who put it in the ground was called wicked and slothful.
You're right.
You want God calling you wicked and slothful? Now, I want to make sure I'm very clear. We're not, I don't want to create FOMO, right? I don't want to create this fear of missing out. Like, so yes, we want you to get started multiplying right away. And that starts with education, right?
You're right.
And don't just take money and like, oh, I gotta go invest in oil, Bitcoin, gold. No.
Right.
First, you got to find out how much do you have, right? Let's not create a FOMO. We're talking about, when we say get started right away, we're talking about educate yourself. And one of the great ways to do it is with Mr. Tanks. I'm going to call you the Tank. Can I just call you Tank?
You can. Absolutely.
Tank has got a book that you could download for free, which is phenomenal, The Moses of Wall Street. And he goes into these, I'm hoping you're going to go into these cycles that you've identified and what we're in right now. So we want to talk about education. That's what we're talking about. And then once you're comfortable, you need to know, and I'm not a financial advisor, right? I'm not licensed. I'm not giving professional advice. I'm just saying for myself, I find out how much money do I need? How much do I have? How much can I just, if I lost it, will it affect anything? And that's how I move forward. I make a plan. So no FOMO.
No, that's right. And Steve, you just mentioned, I should say the same thing. I'm not a registered advisor either, so I don't give personal investment advice. I've never worked for a Wall Street firm. You know, I visited Wall Street once, but that's it. So
did you go to the church? You go to Trinity Church?
I did, but they were redoing the interior of it, and I couldn't get in when I was there. I was really
disappointed. Too bad. You talk about that in your book. You talk about how old that church is right in Wall Street.
Yeah, right at the end of the street. Perfect place for it.
All right. So, where do you want to go from this? From here? Go ahead.
Well, I had something I wanted to share just to bring to life things, Steve. It probably would be a good thing. And then after I did it, if I shared my screen, then I think it would bring up, you might have a lot more questions. And it would pretty much let me share this miracle type event. That's the way I see it. It really was kind of a miracle that day. And I would love to share it briefly.
Let's do that. We want an impartation, right? So you share, and y'all, Father, in Jesus' name, everyone listening, we ask that their eyes be open, their ears be open, that their hearts are ready to receive, and that you would speak through this man in Jesus' name. Go ahead, Tank.
Thank you, Steve. I'll just bring that thing up real quick, and hopefully it works out okay. Steve, maybe you can tell me if you can see my screen.
Beautiful.
Shows up good?
It does.
Well, here's what I'd share, Steve, with your audience, and I hope it's a big help to them. It was a long time in the making, but the picture they're looking at, if they read the book, they'll hear a reference from me about the 400 acres, and that is a lake that I built out there, and I love that place. My kids have went there, and they go fishing there. This was them many years ago, fishing there one day. And I love being able to go to my kids' sporting events, Steve, because I think our country, the people in our country, the foundation is all about faith, family, and finances. And if you get those three things right, Steve, you're off to a good start and a good life. So one day though, Steve, so here's where this gets interesting. One day, sitting on my couch in 2006, I was watching a show on Discovery Channel that was about lions, wild lions, and a man that wanted to go walk around with them over in Africa. And he was in a cage this day, and him and another guy that was familiar with lion behavior, he was a lion trainer, were approaching this wild lion. This is a picture of this happening. And I was watching this on TV. And at the same time, though, Steve, I was doing a Bible study in Acts chapter 10 that day about Peter on the roof. And God was showing him a vision that day. And I was reading about that vision. I'm watching this lion show as these men are approaching the lion and backing away and approaching the lion, backing away and describing how she should react and how they needed to respond to her. And I thought, well, that's kind of like Peter. And God showed him a vision once and he doesn't understand it. And he shows it twice and he still doesn't get it. Shows it to him a third time and he finally gets it. And what you learn about the lion's the same way. You can approach him once and you'll get away with it if you acknowledge the warning. A second time, you'll get away with it if you acknowledge that warning. You go at her a third time, she's going to have you for lunch. You become a T-bone. Her, what I refer to, Steve, as a decision maker DNA kicks in and she's going to come get you. And right at this moment, Steve, sitting on the couch watching that, reading the Bible, all of a sudden, this chart popped into my head. There's a picture of it. And I looked at that chart and a little water. Boy, my throat's dry. I'm trying to keep from coughing. This picture popped into my head of this right here of the NASDAQ in 2005. And I got goosebumps, Steve. And I said, well, wait a minute. That looks like the stock market. Sounds like this. It looks like the same thing. Peter, here's a vision, one second vision, a third vision. Kind of like approaching the lion first time, second time, third time. And I thought, could this really be a behavioral thing that God's built into everything? Animals, people, it's the way we've been trained to think. It brings a new definition to third time's the charm, Steve. It really does.
Just for clarity, Tank, what time frame are you looking at on this chart so people understand what a time frame is? This isn't an hourly, or this is a weekly?
This is a daily chart. Yeah, all my charts will be daily charts. Good point.
All right, so he's making this observation. He's getting this revelation on a daily chart. For those of you, there's a lot of traders here. For those of you who trade with me, that's very key. You know that. But those of you who don't, this is a big deal. The fact that it's on a daily chart. So you're seeing 1, 2, 3 times come in, and then it takes off. That's the pattern, the revelation you have.
That's it, Steve. And I got goosebumps because I thought, wow, that's the lion, the stock market, and Peter with his vision a third time. But here's what the trouble I had, Steve, is I said, boy, that's just Acts chapter 10, Peter on the roof. That's just one time where something's repeated 3 times, not 2 either, Steve, not 2 times, not 4 times, not 5 times, just it gets repeated 3 times and that's the end. And I thought, well, if that's true, there's got to be more. So I spent 3 years from here, Steve, 3 years. You can't search the Bible looking for 3 repetitions. You can search for the number 3, and it's relevant. In my book, you'll see it in the chapter called God's Fingerprint. It is amazing how God has built the number 3 into our country, our government, into us, everything, the universe, our planet. It's amazing. But what I found was you got to read the Bible. So it took time, and I literally, Steve, I asked God, I said, God, show me that this is a real thing. That I got goosebumps and I said, I got to check this out. Well, I had to read the Bible, and over the next 3 years, reading the Bible, being involved in a Bible study, becoming a Sunday school teacher later, Steve, God said, I'll show you, Tank, watch this. So I got the 3s in the Bible. I said, boy, they're there. I went back, studied over 100 years of stock market history, dug into it, found I've got hundreds and hundreds of examples of this, Steve, not just a few happening once every 10 years. It's every year. It happens. You just have to be looking for it.
Right, so just for clarity, you're saying the pattern, you found the pattern in the Bible. God is revealing the patterns of 3, the power of 3. And you're saying you went back historically to the NASDAQ or the S&P?
Everything. Yeah.
Everything. And you notice that every 10 years, the same cycle repeats that we're taking. We're dipping down, a bounce up, a dip down, a bounce up, a major dip down, and then it takes off. That's the pattern you're seeing?
Well, it's even more than that, Steve. These patterns like that 3 right there happened in 2005, took about 8 weeks. You'll see this pattern maybe once or twice a year. Bear markets, which I'll show you one here a little bit later, sometimes you'll get a big bear market that'll be 3 legs down. You'll come off the bottom of that. And then you'll do a little short T3, which is what we just did in November of this year, actually August through October. And it looks just like some of these, which I'll show them to you. So it's really something that repeats on an ongoing basis every year. You'll see this 3 show up in stocks. You might see it once or every year, maybe even twice. There's various forms of these T3s. So you have to be looking for them.
I have a question. Maybe you're going to show us in the next slides, but how do you determine the bottom here? Or are you not interested in the bottom? You're looking at a range.
Yeah, no, it's you're looking for a clear third leg down, Steve, and then you're looking for one particular day that tells you you've got the right day. And it's basically a volume increasing day where the market is moving up. It takes a little bit more explanation than that, but it's what I refer to as a big day. It's a big volume day. The volume's increasing from the previous day. Whatever it is you're looking at, it's going to close in the upper half of the day's range that day. The higher, the better. And it should be moving up with big power. In other words, it can't be just a squeaky day up where you're up, up 10 cents, from the previous day.
So you're looking at money flow, or you're looking at orders coming?
Yeah, looking for power. Yeah, looking for power off that bottom, Steve. Yeah, big volume with price move, which I go into. And these you'll see today are some of the easiest. So sometimes the biggest mistake people make is they try to put a stock they like or something they like, and they try to find a T3 in it. Where I search for T3s and let the T3s be my guide as to where to go.
Oh, see? I love that. Did you hear what he said? He's looking for T3s. He's not looking for something he likes or favors or something he has a bias towards. Yeah. He's looking for these patterns. So this is great. Beautiful.
So here's what I'd share, Steve, just real quick with this. So the research started, took me 3 years, and it took me 5 years to document everything. But the examples in the Bible, just so people can see that it's not just Peter on the roof, which is Acts chapter 10, but it's also 2 Corinthians 12, or 2 Corinthians 12 is Paul asking God to remove his thorn. And he asked God 3 times before he finally stops. In Luke 23, that's a whole different ball game. That's Pilate with Jesus, and he pleads with the crowd. He's trying to figure out how to resolve this issue with Jesus. He approaches the crowd three times. He won't do a 4th time. He finally gives up and lets them have their way. And you say, well, it's not, okay, Tank, you got 3. Well, there's 3 more. John 21, Jesus asked Peter 3 times if he loves him. Not because Jesus needed to know the answer. Peter needed to know the answer. If you look in Matthew 4, you'll find that Satan tempts Jesus 3 times. He doesn't do it a 4th time, doesn't do it a 5th time. He doesn't stop at 2, he goes 3. Then he leaves Jesus alone, we're told. In 1 Samuel chapter 3, if you look into that, that's God calling Samuel, and he speaks to Eli. It takes him 3 times before he finally understands who's talking to him. Not a 4th time, not a 5th time, but 3 times. So it's repeated, this repetition of 3, and it really is the repetition of 3, Steve, that's key, because it's our mind. God gave us this DNA, I call it decision maker DNA. It says a 3rd time, I get it. If I'm going to respond and figure it out, and I say either understand it, accept it, and believe it, I will get it by the 3rd time. And God has proven that throughout the Bible. It's apparent in the stock market over and over, Steve, it just over and over. So after 3 years, I created those 2 things in this book, which the book's one they can get for free. This is in my training stuff. But the first time, Steve, after 3 years of putting it together, in 2010, this was one of the first ones I used, which was Apple, and made a several 100% return. I use options to leverage this pattern. If you get it crystal clear, you can do that. If you get good enough with it, you don't want to do it as a beginner. Wouldn't recommend options as a beginner, because people tend to make mistakes as beginners.
And just to make sure everyone's clear, we're not recommending you do anything. This is pure entertainment. Tank and I are just talking. Yeah, we're just talking, right? It's just fun. So we're not recommending you do anything.
Yeah, that's just what I did back there, Steve, in 2010. That was one of the first that I put my research that I was working on to work for me, and went at it. So here's the book again, and I'm like Henry Ford, don't reinvent the wheel. Henry Ford didn't reinvent the wheel. He just put it to good use, right? He put it on a car and made it work. So you don't have to reinvent anything. Inside this book, this is a page from inside of it. This is 1975, Steve. So watch this. This is magic. magic. I still have a hard time believing it. And I've been, 17 years later. So look at this pattern. This is a bear market where the NASDAQ composite lost about 60% during this time period, which is just a little short of 2 years. Similar to 2000 to 2003, that big bear market top back there. But what this pattern is a little what I call possum. There's three different types of T3s, a powerhouse, a pause, and a possum. The possum I named it that because the market plays dead down here after the bottom is established and will come back at you 3 times. It'll test everybody out. Everybody still thinks they're in a bear market. You're not. You're about to turn and go up. This was a
you made a higher low in that. Okay, so got it. So that's
also. And the key is this 3-stepper, Steve, right here. If that's what you're looking for after an end of a bear market. So you'd say, well, Tank, okay, I was 75, but what's that have to do with anything? Okay, well, if you look ahead in 2003, here's another example. And this was after the bottom in October, after a almost 3-year bear market, devastating 70% decline from the highs. The market rallies, fools everybody again, Steve. It fools everybody into thinking it's still a bear market, that this rally is no different than any of the others that happened 6 months ago or a year ago. And this little T3 right here was a turn. Again, I would label this more as a possum coming out of a bottom of a bear market, pulls back like 1975, takes off and goes. People can review the notes, Steve, for brevity here. I'll move on fast or brevity. So there's 2003, and you'd say, well, Tank, why does that matter? Well, it matters because here is 2023, 20 years later, and here's the same pattern. Boy, it's not real hard to see, right, Steve? If you try to make a T3, you're working too hard at it. The ones that your brain sees develop right in front of you are the easiest, and they work the best. It's the ones you have to try to finagle into a T3 and try to make one that cause you more problems than anything else. They can still work.
There's no possum here that I see, right? So the possum's not required, is it? Or is it you talking about it's before the?
Yeah, so the 2022 bear market official in my book ended in October of 22. The real start was in January of 23. We did a little bit of a T3 possum, a real short one back in February and March. And then this big rally. So here's the easiest thing, Steve, coming off the major bottom, the markets will run, everybody will spot it. But then we start doing this dance. Remember what's going on in October, Israel, the news kicks in, Steve.
Got it.
So the news kicks, this is, maybe this is caused by external events. Doesn't really matter because it happens over and over. This repeats. But if you can distinguish this pattern tells you that what you think is trouble is all normal after a big run. It's resetting. It's taking the weak holders out, and right there's the day to be there. Again, volume increasing. You're looking for big power on a certain day. This is an O'Neill concept of a follow-through rally, basically, that you're looking for. And again, take some training there, lots of details to look at. But there it is again, Steve, just like in 2003. And this has happened in 04, 05, 1998. The model book has tons of examples of this. This would be considered maybe a possum. I would call it a powerhouse possum, either one. Doesn't really matter too much. What matters is that you see it and that you catch it, Steve. So once you learn this, here's what I learned, Steve. I could rely on a stock chart just like that doctor with an x-ray or that builder with a blueprint. I don't need.
That's why it's not gambling. That's why it's not gambling. That's why
exactly right. Exactly right, Steve. And anybody that says, well, Tank, you act like you got a crystal ball, and I say at times I do. Not because I'm any smarter than anybody else. It's because I've learned about this pattern, just like that guy that says, hey, this is the safest, best time to be there. And here's the best thing, Steve, about this. So Warren Buffett, everybody knows who he is, right? So, hey, here's what he has said. He has told people how he likes to think when it comes to the stock market, which is good. Fearful when others are greedy, and greedy only when others are fearful. Sounds like he likes to buy when things have come back at you and things are scary. That's what a T3 is, Steve. Most of the time, people can't get this T3 right. You know why they can't? I know why they can't. It's because the world events happening around you is going to scare you to death. And when it comes time to be in the market, those outside influences are going to stop you in your tracks if you want to listen to it. But you have to learn to say, my money's about being in the right place at the right time. And that's what I have to do. I can't let the outside news, I can tell you in the model book, Steve, I go through the 1990, 91, 2000 to 03. Every time the news is horrendous when you need to be moving ahead in the market and doing the right thing with your money. Warren Buffett admits that he thinks that way. He's also said this in his book, Steve. He said he learned that stocks will move above or below its business value. Watch this, dependent more on emotions than economics. And what is a T3? It's emotions. It's like the lion. The market's coming at you. Then it backs away. Then it comes at you again. Then it backs away by rallying. Then it comes at you a third time. You've had enough. I'm gone. That's your decision maker DNA. It kicks in and says, I see what's happening to me. The first time it's just normal. One time's always normal. Second time, now it's got your attention. You're probably starting to get upset and concerned. And by the third time, it's repetition. It's a pattern. It continues to happen. What am I going to do about it? If you're lying, you eat the guy. If you're in the stock market, what do? The only thing you can do, which is sell. I got to get out of here. This is too painful. I don't like it. And that tells you most sellers that are going to come out are gone. And so that disconnect is on emotions. That T3 is bringing emotions in. The market's changing the value of the stock prices at the time based on emotions, not necessarily the business value. So if you can get yourself to say, well, I'm going to focus on the value that I know is there and I see, and I'm going to come back at the right time. When others are fearful, I'm going to learn, and I won't tell you to be greedy. I'll never tell you to be greedy, Steve. I don't believe in greed. That's a bad place to be. It's not about greed. It's about being a good steward. And how do I get my money into something at the right time? That's the right time. The Bible gives us proof of it. It tells us why it works. So here's what I'd like to do, Steve. I'll show you. I'm going to run through these real quick just so people can see them. And I'll explain these charts just a little bit. If you want to see the symbol, you'll find it up here in the left corner at the top for whatever it is. But what I've done is I put the NASDAQ composite in orange. This is, again, a daily chart. Each one of these little individual bars you're seeing is one day's activity in the market.
Question, you're using TradingView to show us?
Yeah, this is a trading platform, where I've captured the charts and brought them in so you could see them.
You can use the free version of this, guys, on TradingView. You can have up to 3 indicators on there, so you can see exactly what Tank is showing you. Sorry.
Yeah, this is just a custom deal where I've inserted the NASDAQ on top of a stock chart or an ETF in the case this is an ETF. But so what I want you to see, guys, so the NASDAQ composite's always going to be in orange on top. This is a T3 that I just pointed out there a few minutes ago that happened and ended on November 1st this past fall. On the bottom in black, the name matches the black chart. Again, still daily chart. I'm going to draw out the T3 for you. You can notice, what I would tell you to notice is a couple things as we look through them real quick, is you'll see the T3 in the market always above. Watch the timing of the T3s in the bottom correspond to this and whether they do or they don't. Sometimes you're off a little bit, sometimes you're right on the money. And your goal while you're seeing the markets do a T3 is to go through the markets looking for individual stocks, maybe ETFs. If you're a futures player, you can use this chart to go over into the futures pit and participate at a 10 times leverage. You better be good. I'm just telling you as options, guys. Again, it's educational ways of thinking. So down here on the bottom, you'll see the name of the stock, or in this case, the ETF, and then the group that it belongs to. And all of these 3 ETFs I'm going to show you are going to be labeled finance ETFs because they are an ETF. And that's basically what they are. Different names here. These are all, the first 3 are going to be 3 times whatever they're designed to mirror. In this case, the microsector FANGs is going to be after the FANG index, but it's going to go 3 times the distance that the FANG index itself will go. Just multiply the FANG times 3 is basically what you're doing. And as we look through them, guys, the scaling over here is for this black chart. It has nothing to do. This is just a picture of the NASDAQ. the scaling to the right has nothing to do with the NASDAQ. It has everything to do with this black chart. The volume bars are on the bottom. This is a scale for volume and shares there traded. And just notice from about the November mark where I've got the green arrow up here on the index, you can look over at the scale and tell where it went, 150 to 350. You can figure out percentages if you want to. I did not do that, but you can if you want. You'll just notice that they're all pretty big. That's what you'll probably notice right away. So this is one example, guys. So I'm going to roll through these quick, Steve, and then if you want to back up, I just want people to be able to see this because this is a slideshow of a current 2023 T3 environment that has repeated for hundreds of years, guys. This is not a one-off thing. It's not one and done. It's going to happen again down the road. It has from 1895. I know because I went back that far. So here we go. I'll click through them real quick, guys. We'll just zoom down through here and you can look at them. I'll give a few pause so you can see what they are. Look at the price scale on the right. You can see about what they might have gained. Take a look at this and see what you notice, guys, going through these. So there's your the FANG. So here's the SOX long. SOXL is a symbol for this one. This again is an ETF. It's designed to mirror the semiconductor. Basically the semiconductor or the SOX index there times 3 again. So it's going to move 3 times what the SOX index moves. Good leverage. This is the SOX. This is semiconductors. This is the NASDAQ. This is semiconductors. But notice the pattern, guys. There it is, plain as day. Here it is again in the UPRO. So the bottom, this is kind of what the S&P would look like. You'd say, well, Tank, this is the NASDAQ composite. What was the S&P doing? The same thing. And it looks just about like the UPRO. The UPRO just moves, again, 3 times the S&P 500. You can see 40 to 65. It's moving 3 times the S&P's performance is what's happening there in that index. So that's 3 ETFs, Steve. I just wanted to bring those 3. The next bunch of these are all individual stocks, Steve. So I'll roll through them quick. So here's and again, top left corner, you'll see this, the name of the symbol in the top left corner in the white chart way up at the top up here. If you want to look for symbols, this one, that's the company name, AAON. It's building AC and heating products. Notice this, guys. This is industry group that he belongs in, building AC and heating products. What I would tell you to also notice as we go through this, the industry group, it doesn't matter. Psychology is the same no matter where you go, guys. The T3 works no matter where you go on the planet. So there's 1, 2, 3 drops. You can see it plain as day, timed almost perfectly again with the NASDAQ and the S&P 500 that are making their turns, building AC. What about something else, different group? How about CBIZ? That's a commercial service business. Little shorter, kicks in leg 2 of this, does a little shorter, quicker third leg. You can look again at the scale, 50 to 75, thereabouts. Again, here's another one, Salesforce, probably more familiar to more people. Again, a T3, same thing, timed again about the same. You can see about the move from the low 200s to 300. Again, and this is 4 months, guys, 4 months time. So picture this, 2 to 3, 50%, 4 months. Not too bad. Watch the charts. Again, here's another one, Elf Beauty. Probably a lot of people know what Elf Beauty is. There it is. Same picture, a little different. Notice how they look a little different, guys. This is like animals on the planet. You can say, hey, Tank, do all dogs look alike? No, obviously not, right, guys? But you say, if I learn what the general look of a dog is, I can distinguish a dog from a cat, right? But a lot of different kinds of dogs. Well, T3s take a lot of little different shapes and forms. They can be a little trickier to spot and see. That's where training comes in, guys. There's lots of little details to how these things, what has to happen and what should happen to make a valid T3. Timed with an index, guys, I'm showing you the cream of the crop because what you can see is sometimes the NASDAQ, you don't have to have a T3 in one of the market indexes for a stock to do this. A stock can do them now, guys, and the market might keep going and a stock might stop and do a little T3. Typically, there'll be pauses. They'll be shorter after we get into a power event like we're in now, so they won't last but maybe 3 to 8 weeks. A lot of the powerhouses, I call them, will last 8 weeks or more. They can be a year long, 9 months long even sometimes. So different deals, guys. So there's Elf Beauty. There's Acushnet. Its symbol's golf. It's in leisure products. Notice the chart, guys. Interactive Brokers, a financial investment banker, guys. Interactive Brokers, timed off a little bit, still valid. Still valid. Market's in an uptrend. Took a little bit more time before the final dunk on leg 3 happened on that. Still there. Lam Research says electronic semiconductor, same pattern. Hard to see this, guys. How hard is that, right? Marriott International, there's a hotel, leisure lodging, guys. T3 finishes same time. There's Monolithic Power Systems, electronic semiconductor fabless group, industry group. There he is. Off he goes. You can see the size off to the right of the gains, guys. You come back and look at this if you want. Parker Hannifin, machinery, general industry. There it is, T3, bang. You can see the run from there. Big percentage again, short period of time. SAIA, that's transportation trucking. Surely the people must think differently that own that stock. Nope, same thinking. Same thing, guys. And that really is, Steve, and this is like the cream of the crop. NASDAQ doing a T3, you find stocks doing T3s. That's like the gold nugget, Steve. It's about 99.9% that the result that you see through this screen is going to happen. That's how confident I am. When you find the NASDAQ tied with stocks like that clean, that easy, it's golden. It's as good as gold, Steve. So that's what I wanted to show you real quick, Steve. I want to share just a few things, Steve. If you give me a little bit of time, I don't want to show that one yet. So here's what I tell people, Steve. Buying and selling requires a decision and action. Successful investors are quick to decide and act and don't believe in mistakes. There's a big problem, people. When you have a system, you'll never make a mistake unless you fail to decide and act. And I stand behind that every day of the week. And you say, well, what actions can people take, Tank? Well, I'll tell you, here's my opinion, my thoughts on acting. I'll give you 3. Reacting, that's acting before thinking. Probably not a good thing to do in the market. Responding, acting after thinking. That's what I recommend. Your third choice is one I would totally avoid, which is ludicrous. That behavior is acting without thinking. That'll kill you in the stock market. So I wouldn't go there. I would avoid the reacting, but I would stick to the responding, guys. That's where I would be. So here's something I wouldn't want you to miss, guys. Don't miss this. Back when I was researching, trying to figure out to get started writing a book, my daughter's about 5 or 6 years old. I'll share this story because I'll never forget it, guys. I cherish it still. I think of it often. I was leaving for work. My daughter was playing the piano. I heard her, and then I heard her banging around on the keys, and I thought, what in the world is she doing? That just sounds like she's frustrated or something. I walked in, sure enough, she's frustrated. I said, Ava, what's going on? She said, hey, Dad, I'm trying to learn how to play this song by memory. She hated reading music, Steve. Hated reading music. Still does. She does not. She's at a school right now down in Belmont, in Nashville, business music school. And I'm telling you, don't get her to read music. I said, Ava, I want to share something with you, Steve. And this was before I wrote the book. I said, Ava, do this and see what happens. I want you to leave your book open, read the music, play the song by the book. Then I want you to close the book, think about what you just played in your head. I want you to open the book and read that book again. And I want you to play that song, reading the music. Do it twice, close the book, think about it. Open the book, read it, play it a third time using the book. I want you to close the book and I want you to think about it. You can take as long as you want now. Then I want you to just sit there and play the song from memory. Don't open the book, just play it. And I left her, Steve, that day. Come home that day and opened the door. Ava comes running at me full speed, literally grabs me, wraps her arms around my legs because she's between 5 and 6. So it's not like big girl. She's a little girl grabbing Dad's by the legs and says, Dad, it worked, it worked. And I'm like, and I totally hadn't, I wasn't thinking about this when I'm going, what's she talking about? What work? And she said, Dad, it worked, it worked. I'm like, what? And then she's like, the song, Dad, I did what you told me to do, and it worked. And I'm telling you, Steve, she was thrilled to death. So what I would tell people not to miss, Steve, is best friend of mine, Troy. He lives here in Ohio, just north of me here, about a couple hours. he told me when we were talking, when I was about to write the book and was working on it, Troy told me, he said, "Ron," he said, teachers, they tell us teachers to repeat things 3 times. And I said, well, now you know why, right, Troy? Now you know why. They may not know why 3 works or why to repeat them 3 times, but it's because the Bible tells me that's how we've been programmed. So don't miss it. And we shouldn't expect kids, Steve, when we're teaching people things or training kids to get it the first time. People aren't going to get this today the first time, what this is, I don't think, maybe. But repeat things a 3rd time to a kid. Give them a 3rd chance, to get it. And if you work with them with that attitude, not expecting the first time or the second time to perform a miracle, expect it on the 3rd time. They'll probably get it. And I would miss that, Steve. And I think, as I keep hitting my buttons accidentally, this is a guy, I wish I could have met him. Love what I know about him. Didn't get to meet him. And what he says right here, I think is spot on for everything regarding our life, our country, about anywhere you want to apply it. I think that is the key to a flourishing person, family, country, is what that man said right there. And I'll let everybody take the time to read it, Steve. And that's about what I had to share with you. And I don't know, where you want to go from here, Steve, but I know what people are thinking right now, Steve. This is what they're probably thinking about me right now. I think this is probably what they're thinking. So, Dr. J, if you want to go fishing, this is how I fish. Just be forewarned. This is how Moses fishes. And I'll let you guess who's Moses in the cartoon. So if you go with me, I will use a fishing pole and a lure. I won't have a net, Steve. I don't cast nets to catch my fish like the guys did, Jesus in the boat, with Peter and them. Hey, cast your net on this side of the boat. Love that. Fishing pole works for me. So,
amen. I have some questions. Well, first, an observation. One is that this system of 3 that you've identified works in every area of our life. So we can apply this into every area. But going back to how you use this for seeing the 3 legs down in stocks, are there some confirmations you're looking for? So for example, based on the charts you saw me, I was looking at, okay, what's similar there? So is the leg down always a certain minimum number of days? No, but there is always, it looks like there's always 3 lower lows first.
yes.
Right? So always a low, a low, a bounce, a lower low, a bounce, a lower low. So lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, and then it goes. Is that a confirmation you're looking for?
Yes, and so here's a little bit of there is a lot of technical stuff to this, Steve. So I mentioned 3 different T3s. All 3 of the T3s employ the concept you just talked about, which is a low, a rally, a lower low, another rally, which can be kind of sideways, like Shopify here was more of a sideways holding period versus a real stiff rally. They can be either or. That's what you'll learn. But
so they can consolidate, but it's got to go lower.
Got to go lower. It has to undercut. There's certain rules to these legs, Steve, over time as you try to spot them, that leg 2 needs to undercut leg 1. Sometimes you'll get a leg down and it'll stop just about the same place as leg 1. And usually that's not a leg 2 yet. It needs to undercut leg 1. So there's lots of little things you have to look for. The main thing, Steve, is that these can be different lengths. So when I gave you 3 different T3s, the possum's one after a bear market, and that's near the very bottom of the market still as the markets pull back. This T3 in November, I would put it as more of a powerhouse. There was a little bit of a possum back in February, March. It was real short. It was just several weeks long. They can be 3 or 4 or 5 weeks. But the main thing is that there's 3. The powerhouse is usually 8 weeks to maybe 4 months long. So 2 months to 4 months, but they can be longer. And I turned them that because the powerhouses are longer, and when they do hit bottom, they tend to run and really get powerful. Matter of fact, Steve, most of the rallies after a powerhouse, the speed and velocity of the rally is much better than the rally that occurred prior to the T3. And that's one thing you're looking for, ideally, is a rally ahead of a T3, followed by the next rally, which gets most of the time will get stronger. Some T3s will fail, Steve, so I don't want people to think this is absolute. I'll give you about 90% chance of winning. This case, it's way higher. But if you were just picking out a T3 and the market was doing its own thing at the time, and you just said, hey, this stock looks like it's a T3, you don't have to have the market in a T3 to find a stock in a T3. And when you do find the stock outside of that, and this isn't going on, what you'll find is that there'll be 8 weeks or longer. That's a powerhouse. A pause can be 3 weeks, which is really short, to about 8 weeks. And the reason I separated those is because pauses generally occur up here, Steve. After you might come out of a powerhouse rally, might go 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, pretty smooth for the most part. And then you'll see a little T3 that the rules that I apply to the powerhouse, I don't apply to the T3 pause, because my research says you don't need to. What you have to do is your eyeball will pick up this T3. And I don't have examples of the pause here because I didn't know how much time. I was trying to keep it short, but it's a much shorter deal. But what your eye will see is 1, 2, 3. And if your eye sees it and you go, is that 3 weeks or more? Yep, you're probably stepping at a pause in the market. And I call them a pause because generally they'll pick up and take off out of there certain things you're looking for again, mainly one day, and it'll run out of there and just keep right on going to new highs. And that's your safest time to add to a position so that you don't get tripped up by a market pullback. And that's what I found about these, Steve. People that are entering here, if there's an exit required, there's no reason you should be losing money with the T3. Even most of them that fail will rally up, and maybe they don't make it to a new high and they get to here and something goes wrong with the market and they roll back down. Worst case scenario, you might be coming out even, maybe ahead a little, maybe behind a little. That's usually the worst case if you're doing things right and you're spotting the pattern right. And as you can see, most of these are similar in how they appear.
So the first thing is over 90%, that's like God type of trading. Honestly, in the trading world,
Yeah.
that's God trading.
Yeah.
The second thing is, like anything, this takes some time. And I remember my wife and I, we breed Royal Dutch sport horses, and my wife grew up with horses, but I didn't, right? So when we would have people that would come in and say, oh, this says this horse is this is this. And I was like, how do you know that without a doctor coming here? Oh, I just see it. Well, I didn't see anything, but after a couple of years, I was able to do the same thing based on the gait that the horse had, based on the way it was moving. And I will tell you my experience also with trading is it took a while for me to see the way I trade in crypto analysis. These T3s, that's a bear flag, and that is always going up, right? It's like a 70-80% chance it's going up. So Tank's T3 is what I call a bear flag, and that's a sign for me to go. And I have indicators like money flow, and also that will tell me it's a good time to come in. But it's going to take time. You got to learn it. You got to spend some time learning this, and God will help, right? He's a source of knowledge and wisdom, and he is inside of us. What is the best way, Tank, for them to get your triple tank system? Do they go to your website?
Yeah, and I'm working on a better approach over there, Steve, but they can go there. And if they want to see even a better, more in-depth of what I just shared today, there's what's called a web class on there, or a Bulletproof Investor training, and that's where I introduce the program and what it's about. And they can get a lot more. Really, it's way more detailed than what I just shared today. It goes through a lot more things. I talk about the Bulletproof Investor's mindset, lots of different things in there. But they can sign up there, Steve, if they want to. And there's manuals. I have online videos. So there's lots of the online videos. I did it that way because that's how I'd want somebody to teach me. You know, if I couldn't sit down beside them, I'd want them to make videos for me, and that's what I did. And then the book. The model book and the study guide that I showed there is those are in there too, digital. And also I tend to mail those out to people as well, along with a hard copy of the book. And I had one guy, Steve, that model book, a guy that's in my program has been there for years, said, he told me that model book is what he referred to it as priceless. He said, Tank, that I'm going to teach my kids how the markets work with that book, that model book. And it goes back to 1895, Steve. It really is a gold nugget book.
So am I. And I am grateful that there's people like you out here. I really want to honor you, Ron,
Hmm.
because most guys that I know in this industry are always keeping their secrets close to the vest. And institutional investors, the retail trader is the enemy. That's where they're looking. They call it dumb money, right? They're looking to grab their money. That's what institutional investors call this. And I love your heart in getting this out to the common person. I just love it. Guys, click those links below. Get involved. Get on his email address. He's in the process of revamping his website, but what he's saying is true. It is real. It's going to take some time to recognize these patterns, right? But you will. You will. And I highly recommend this system. I think we should be teaching our children, their children. We should be teaching our pastors. We should be teaching people in our congregations how to do this because we are called to multiply. And I want to thank you for being a blessing and sharing your secrets. It's like a father, right? And we don't have many fathers, right? We don't have many spiritual fathers out there. So thank
Yeah.
you for disclosing this and sharing this. It is so valuable and it makes a difference.
Yeah, well, thank you, Steve. I am really so, Steve. You'd say, well, Tank, why would you share this secret? Well, here's the reason, Steve. And if somebody reads my book, they're going to find out the message God has for us all about the best investment I ever made was in my relationship with Jesus. That was the best investment I ever made. But you know what? The thing is, Steve, you'd say, well, Tank, why don't you just keep it to yourself? Yeah, but look at this. This is proof, Steve, of God the Creator created us. He put this decision maker DNA in us, and it shows up in the stock market. You can put it to work. I can associate the Bible with why it works and bring glory to Him. Why would I keep this powerful thing about God, a truth about God and our finances and the way you could operate? Why would I keep it secret? It brings Him glory.
Amen.
Can't put a
Amen.
light on. You got to put your light on a lampstand, right, Steve? You can't.
Right.
You can't be selfish.
No, you got to lay your life down for the next generation. That's what Christ did. We are called to do the
Yeah.
same for our wives, for our children first, and then for others. I
Yeah.
love how you put God, family, country in that order. We do the same. You've been such a blessing. I'm looking forward to bringing you on again, actually.
That'd be
And
fun.
I want to go a little deeper. I actually would love to bring you into, I have a small little trading group that I've trained that trade with us. I'd love to bring you in well, just have you speak to us and talk. And
I'd
you're
love
just
to.
real. You're a generous man. You're generous with your time. What you see is what you get, folks. Right? This is the real deal. There's no show. I spoke to Ron prior to this interview a few weeks back. This is him. This is how he is. And I love this. We need more men like you standing up and being an example of character, of how to be a father, how to be a husband, and how to multiply our finances, right? And so thank you for all you do. Click the links below. God bless you. Friends, make sure you read his book. I want you to tell me what you thought of his book. I want you to tell me because I'm going to bring him back and we're going to have him go a little deeper. God bless you, Tank. We'll see you
Yeah.
soon.
Thank you. Yeah. Enjoyed it. Thank you, Steve.